Judge held that a defendant's private chats and defense strategy documents created with the public version of the Claude AI platform were not protected by attorney-client privilege or the work product doctrine.
In an ideal world, you would be completely secure. In an ideal world, you would have 100% capability, right? But those two are sometimes at the opposite sides of the same spectrum.
There's too much. I tried it and I said, this is trash. Please go switch to Claude Enterprise and we can do something reasonable.
Even if you pay $100 or $200 a month, it's still technically public.
Lawyers are paid for our information, our knowledge. Internally, we have our own, I'd say, proprietary knowledge base, right? We've got our precedents, we've got our strategies that are private to each firm. We don't want to disclose that information to the public.
You've been using Microsoft for 10 years, so your data has been used for training anyway, whether you like it or not.
The fact that I'm using this internal Harvey tool, what is this different now than using a CRM system?
Every day there's a new model, there's a new product. So it's hard to track, it's hard to keep up with.
The model training doesn't happen in real life. It doesn't happen when you have a conversation with the model. What does agentic AI actually mean in legal context?
Nothing, it's just a buzzword.
Welcome back to another LinkedIn Live session of AI Law and Infrastructure. So today we got into what AI native actually means and more importantly, what it doesn't. We're talking about data pipelines, the Hapner case, Claude Enterprise versus Teams, and many other things. Frode, Stefan, Masai, and me keeping it casually real as always. Let's get into it. And we're live. Welcome everyone to another Casual Saturdays LinkedIn Live session. Today we have Stefan back. Really happy about that. Hey, Stefan.
Hey, how's it going?
So, guys, I've been getting a lot of questions lately, right? About, and I mentioned this, Frode, about AI native. What is it? How should we think about it? But basically, the underlying question that I see is how do I make sure that I have some sort of a strategic approach to this, that I'm not just stacking tools on top of one another? What are your guys' thoughts on this?
AI native. I guess we'd first want to break down what that even means. Like, what does that mean to you guys?
Exactly. Like even that is and that's also what I'm seeing with most people. Like, what should I think about when I think AI native? So, like, I don't know. I think that there's multiple dimensions of this, right? On one way, you can look at this from a perspective of a ladder. At which rung of a ladder are you? Like, do you have your data set up in a way that it can be, anything can be automated with that data? Is it cleaned up, organized? Is there one storage? Does everybody know where to find stuff? Like, is all that done? Then you can go and automate stuff. And then the next layer would be adding AI to automation. And then like the next stuff is, you know, what everybody is talking about today, like AI agents, right? AI making decisions. And so that's like the lens of, you know, the rungs of a ladder. But then you have like also the range dimension. So like on one end, you have like, you know, these traditional law firms where like the partners are taking out money at the end of the year. And they're mainly focused on practicing law. And they do have some tools that make them more efficient or enable them to do things in a different way, get better output. On the other side of the spectrum, you have somebody that is like investing a lot of their earnings at the end of the year back into the tech stack. They're hiring engineers. They're building, you know, their own proprietary platform. Like Garfield AI did it for like processing small debt claims. General Legal is doing with commercial contracting. And there's like, those are like the two extremes of the spectrum, right? One that has some tools that make them more efficient, and one that is like half, you know, technology company. But I think most of the firms are like somewhere in the middle, right? Based on the goals that they want, the reality, the technical capabilities, how they want to distribute the budget, and all of those things. And so like when you start looking at it from those few constraints, then you can start positioning someone in that, and then you can start figuring out, okay, so what should the next steps be? What does AI native actually even mean for you? Where does it make sense? Where does it just add fluff? Yeah. What do you guys think about that? Like, that puts you a bit on the spot, because like I've been thinking about this lately a lot, and you guys clearly haven't. Sorry about that.
Yeah, first off, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, my camera seems yeah, my camera's freezing, so I said, oh, to heck with it. I guess for me, AI native would basically say, like, basically mean building your systems with AI as the main emphasis, right? Like the main point, like your system's built around AI rather than AI kind of being implemented on the outside or augmenting your system at some point. I guess AI native would mean, you know, when you're building your system, AI is the focal point. That's where you're starting, and all of your systems are built around it. And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the way I interpret it. I don't know. That's hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, it does. It feels like, and I heard that before, like if you take AI native is when you take AI away, the system collapses, basically. That's AI native, right? But that, I don't know, like that's AI native without any fallbacks and safeguards, because like the system shouldn't collapse if you take a part of it away. But anyways, yeah, that's a different type of question. But yeah,
that's AI with one vendor.
AI with one window,
Yeah, one vendor, and it goes down, you're done.
Yeah.
I would say before you think of anything with AI native, make sure you have your pipeline in order and have your documents sorted.
Have a backup, right?
Anyway.
Oh, we got a comment.
Keep
rebuild with AI. Don't bolt it on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you need a pipeline.
Yeah, you need a pipeline. You mean for continuously cleaning your data and organizing it, because it's too much of a process to be handled manually at scale, right?
Yes, because people have Excel sheets, they have PDFs, they have Word, they have all kinds of documents. Just feeding that straight to AI will never work. So you need to clean them, have them sorted, and have a structure on your documents before you adopt AI.
Yeah, because like they say, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
If you feed it bad information or the information that's not organized or with proper instruction, your output's going to be more than likely not the best.
Okay, let's go play that game. What was first, the chicken or an egg? So, so where do you start? Okay, you want to clean the data, right? But you have so much data, and that data is being used for different matter types, for different things that you do. So what type of data do you start cleaning, and how do you clean? What do you clean it for?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to figure out where is your data. A lot of people don't even know. Data could be stored on a jump drive. It could be stored in someone's desktop computer. Like there's data all over your office. So you got to first do some type of audit to figure out where does your data live. Is there part of it in the cloud, part of it on your local server? I think that might be the first, or one of the first steps at least. Like, where is your data?
Do you look at your data as a whole already?
I think you should figure out what you have, right? Like what's the important information that you have that you want to fix.
Yeah, I would say, look, first of all, sort your data, find out what you actually want to use.
Yeah.
Not all data is relevant for what you do. That's first. And then you need to clean it. You can't have coffee stains and writing on the side and everything. That will mess up your AI when it reads the data. We have a client now. Yeah, we have everything in Microsoft, and it turns out that 90% of the data are in private OneDrives. So it's not even accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
Guys, for the past 2 minutes, I think Masai has been writing to me on LinkedIn trying to get into the call. Sorry about this.
He's back. He's back.
Good
back.
morning. How are you guys doing?
Great, the whole group. Nice.
Dude, I was trying to reach Frode. I was trying to reach Lotte. I was like, dude, somebody let me in.
Lotte just came like below my desk now, showing me the phone, like, let Masai in. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it seems like an interesting conversation, though.
Yeah.
Native AI.
Yeah, where do you start with AI? And then we figured out you started with the data. Okay, but then what part of the data do you start with, and how do you figure that out? Do you just start at, like, looking at the whole data and start organizing it one by one, or like, do you first figure out what are you trying to do and then start looking at it from that perspective and then trying to identify, okay, what type of data do I need for this workflow? But then the question becomes, okay, you now know this one workflow that you want to automate or, like, enhance with AI, and now you look at the data from that perspective. But how do you know that you have picked the right workflow?
Trial and error, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
Got to test. You got to test it.
You have to just. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so let's say I am a law firm owner, and you guys are trying to pitch to me your solutions, right? So I'm like, now, okay, so this doesn't sound good. Like, currently, I'm not looking like a person that's gonna buy from you anything. Like, you're telling me that I have to try a couple of things now, and they might fail, and I'm not getting anything out of it. Isn't there?
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Yeah.
How can we mitigate this? There must be something we can do.
I think if you have, because obviously Frode has experience, Rok, you have experience, and then I've done law firms before. If you can, you've done things that have worked, So if you can start them off with like an easy win, I think that's better, because then you can show them that AI can actually do something for them, and then later down the line you can probably try more complex stuff that might have a less 100% success rate. You know what I mean? But if you can start them off with something that's super basic that helps them get a win early on, I think that's probably the best way to start.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that really, like, kind of also builds trust into the technology itself, right? And it also, like, usually when you kind of do one thing, you're already like looking into other things, because you need to understand what's around this thing that you're currently touching to really know how to, successfully automate that part or whatnot. And then you're getting, like, at the end of this phase, you're getting out much more informed and knowledgeable. And your next pick is going to have an even higher probability of success, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concludes. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I want to talk about have you seen this United States versus Hepner? Have you seen that?
Yes. Yeah.
I want to talk about that. What did they find? What's this case and what happened? Do you know?
Yeah. Just one before that, because we got a comment from Justin. Make the first use case as tiny as it can be. The hard part is convincing them of this in relation to the cost. Yes, good point. To the cost and then case. Yeah, well, both, I guess, Justin. That's why it's also interesting. So imagine you have like a 30-person firm, right? And usually it's going to be that every single 30 lawyer firm. Usually it's going to be that like every single person is losing 1 hour of their billable time because they're not tracking it correctly. Imagine a meeting going 15 minutes late. How many times does that happen? But then you as a lawyer go retrospectively at the end of the day through your calendar to write your billables, right? And then you might miss a couple of things. And on average, that's an hour. So imagine if you're able to capture all of that. So like, these AI tools that run in the background on the system can be self-hosted. They run in the background of your laptop. and they're basically tracking your time and tracing, monitoring it. So these things are capturing a lot of the billables, and a billable of a lawyer is quite expensive. So at the end of the month, if you have a 30-person law firm, that experiment alone could finance another experiment, another AI experiment, because of the potential of what it could capture. And that's a low investment. And usually that's like, not for everybody. Some of the law firms have really figured out, especially like mid-sized ones, they already have this figured out. But like for some smaller ones, that's a good place to maybe start. Just, to Justin's point. And then Hepner.
Yeah.
Anybody else? So I don't keep on blabbering. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this on Hepner case?
Well,
No,
what can you give the
I have to look it up.
There were two cases. Stefan, that's interesting to talk to you about because you're a lawyer. So there were two cases, and please let me know if I'm mixing them up. One was Hepner and one was another one. Is Hepner the one where the client in the process was a CEO that used a public version of ChatGPT to basically, analyze some court documents, and then the court ruled the waiver of a breach of attorney-client privilege?
I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't looked at either of the cases yet, so I can't really comment yet. But I'll have to take a look at them.
Yeah. It's the judge held that a defendant's private chats and defense strategy documents created with the public version of the Claude AI platform were not protected by attorney-client privilege or the work product doctrine. And
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not an enterprise plan. And when you have a public version in the supply chain of the AI company, the Anthropic itself, there's human reviewers that are going through the chats and are basically organizing them in data sets. So in that case, the confidentiality is breached. But if you have an enterprise version, we're speaking at a contractual level now. Nobody knows what is happening behind closed doors, but like at a contractual level, in the supply chain, nobody is basically doing that because they're not using your data to train the models. So they don't have to assemble the data sets out of it. So like, they ruled that because it was a public version of Claude.
Yeah, well, he's right.
And public is, even if you pay, because enterprise is different than pro or max or something like that. So even if you pay $100 or $200 a month, it's still technically public, I guess, no?
Yes, you need to read the rules. The only enterprise edition on Claude is if you go with the Teams version, which is minimum, I think, 5 people before you can sign up, or you sign up to the enterprise version. Everything else is free for them to use as they please.
Yeah.
I think it's the same also ChatGPT. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They have like this, like they're introducing more and more tiers. So like it's important to read the privacy statements and like which tiers apply to which sub policy. That's also important.
Yeah.
We got 2 more comments. One is, I think. Oh yeah, sorry, Stefan. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to say, speaking on that, was it the client that was using ChatGPT, or was it the lawyer in this case?
No, it's so
client.
No,
okay.
The client.
Oh, I see.
They were looking at him for misappropriating over $150 million wire fraud. And then I guess he talked about it with Claude, and then.
Oh yeah.
That was it.
Oh man, that's not good.
That's crazy.
We got a comment from Faisal. I think because AI native systems rely heavily on data legal frameworks, must ensure privacy, fairness, and transparency. Not sure. I feel like the AI native is a term that is used to describe more of an approach that you took to integrate the technology. Like, is it like the spine of how you design your operational and delivery model, or is it something that you basically just use a little bit here and there? But when it comes to, like, I feel like AI native systems, like, they could also be hooked to private models and like insecure vendors. So like in the end, they could be also pretty unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about this? Do you also, actually, that's a good question. Like, how do you view AI native? Is it just like from the lens of an operational and delivery model, or something more than that?
I think it's like it's almost like restructuring the firm to make it better for AI in a way. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between doing the exact same thing that you've always done and just adding AI on top versus trying to figure out like how do we organize the firm. Like for example, if a firm moves from billing by the hour to flat fee, for example, that's like a more structural change. So I think AI native has to do more with like structural changes of the firm in order to get the most out of AI, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And then make a decision if you want to run it offline or online.
Let's talk about this. So I've been talking to somebody that had, they're a part of a 90, the headcount of the law firm is 90, 50 plus lawyers. So they wanted to design some sort of a operating model of AI where AI would be super safe for them to use. And in that, they were talking to multiple custom vendors, and they were getting quotes for six-figure numbers, like in the low 100,000s. And basically, they were getting quotes also for like, creating and self-hosting a fine-tuned model that is fine-tuned on recognizing personally identifiable information and masking it. So like a pretty enterprise level proposal. Is that really needed? Because on the other hand, they had 10 years of their data sitting in Outlook anyways. Right? Okay. Yeah. I just realized, the contrast that I made now with those two statements, but that's actually the reality there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what's the middle ground? So what is something that is like operationally possible for someone that wants to stay compliant with all these frameworks, at least on the contractual level, and still wants to get, the benefit of this technology?
Why not?
If you're already in Windows, you're pretty much screwed anyway. So why go offline with your AI? It makes no sense. You have filters, Pi2 filters, remove sensitive data before you send it as a query to the LLM. And there are steps you can take there to make sure you don't send sensitive information. But if you're already in any big tech atmosphere, there is no point in going offline. You go offline if you have documents that have never been online. That's my take.
Yeah.
Because if you've been online with your documents, sure, they've been read and checked already. So what's the point?
Yeah. Masai, you wanted to say something?
Why don't they just do they might as well just use Claude on Amazon Bedrock or something like that.
Yeah.
That's so what I was thinking of, right, was like, so you have these AI gateways. So let's say that you have a self-hosted model, and then there's like this proxy that sits in between, and that one, does additional masking. And like you have frameworks for this, such as Light LLM. While I was thinking about this, I went and I wanted to understand their architecture better, what they're actually doing. And I found an article where like just last week they were hacked. And there's a lot of things that were exposed.
Oh, no.
So there you go.
This is
Again.
what light LLM.
Light LLM, like AI gateway, right? That like does, you know, for regulated industries is like pretty handy because it does a lot of the work that you would have to usually custom build. So like there goes your 100K infrastructure proposal. I mean, just install Light LLM if you have to. But if you have data in Outlook and you have everything in SharePoint, and like if your people have their personal Gmail accounts with personal Google Drives where client data is sitting, then don't look into this. Clean up the mess first.
Yeah. Just keep it. There's no point.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a client now who says, yeah, they have everything in Microsoft. I mean, everything. And then they want to go offline. I said, what's the point? Everything is there. They've been using.
Yeah, why do they want it offline? Because they don't want, is the argument we don't want our data to be used for model training?
They don't want the data to be used for model training. They also think that being offline is more safe, and they are not satisfied with Copilot. And when you start looking into it, everybody uses the free Copilot, which is even worse. You have no protection at all regarding your data. And you've been using Microsoft for 10 years, so your data has been used for training anyway, whether you like it or not. So what's the point? Unless you have data that has never been there. Yeah, I can see it, but yeah, otherwise forget it. Switch to Claude, buy a Teams, so you at least have an enterprise legal contract saying they can't use your data for training, or go with an enterprise contract.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if you go with the enterprise contract, I mean, even if you're already in Microsoft, clean up your data. So Copilot, even though that nobody's happy with it, I mean, still nobody gets the real value of the potential it has, even though that potential is arguably low, because they don't have their data cleaned, and then Copilot is just lost amongst all of this mess. So like
Copilot has too much. There is too much restrictions. There is too much guidelines. It's I would say it's the worst of any AI vendor at the moment.
No, that's arguably correct.
Huh?
Yeah.
I saw the post. I think you posted yesterday about Copilot.
Yeah, my last two clients now, everything is Copilot, and I tried it and I said, this is trash. Please just switch to Claude Enterprise and we can do something reasonable. Even if it has open AI models, it's so restricted. It's not even funny.
What's the damage? Because with Enterprise, they bill you the $20 a month, and then they bill you for usage separately.
Yes.
You know? And then what's the damage in terms of like an average firm? Say they have 5 or 10 users that use it regularly. And what is their bill gonna look like? There's $100 flat, and then probably what, like how much?
What, for Enterprise?
Yeah, like if they use it every single day and they get billed for the usage separately. Let's say they do in a day, I don't know what, like maybe 500,000 tokens each person, maybe per day.
Oh, that's a lot. I don't know. I know Claude has these teams, which guarantees you won't use your data, and I think that's 125 or 150 a month.
Yeah, Teams. I think
there is minimum 5 people.
5 people. Yeah. I think it's $25 a month for Teams, per person, per seat. But they give you usage with Teams. With Enterprise, they don't give you usage. They only give you the seat, and then you have to pay for usage on top with Enterprise. So I just want to know what if you've seen.
For Enterprise, you actually need to give them your estimated usage each month.
And then they give you a quote.
You pay for everything.
And then they give you a quote when you tell them how much you're going to use.
Yeah, and then you have to prepay everything.
Yeah.
It's the same as you do with Claude now, because Claude now you pay $200, let's say, for Pro, but then you have the API extension on. So as soon as your Pro subscription is used, it will switch you to the API cost.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy posts on Twitter about people running over their limit. There's one guy who I think when Opus, the fast version came out, and fast and sub agents came out. So you can run Claude really fast, and then you can spin off like 5 sub agents that are also running really fast at the same time.
Yeah.
There was one guy that I think in like 2 or 3 days spent like $2,000. He was like, "Why is my bill $2,000? Crazy."
Well,
Yeah.
fellas, I think the $1 million question is this: when you're selling an AI product to a law firm, right? Most firms, they have what a billable hour type of structure, right? Um, so you're selling it, a lot of companies are selling, hey, I can save you time, right? But what's the value of that time saved? Where, because I'll be honest, as a lawyer, I mean, we that's how we make our money, through our billable hour. But if I'm able to save time, where can those time savings go? You know, um, and if the cost is going to be, me using Claude, now I've got to pay an extra $2,000. Am I actually really saving? You know, like am I losing? Like where can I win? Like where are the wins? Yeah,
No,
I may be saving time, but I've also have an additional cost that wasn't budgeted earlier on, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's the
How
role
can,
There's
is,
many.
right?
so how do we sell that, right? How can you sell that to a firm,
yeah,
um, to
Yeah,
justify
there's
that
so many
cost?
different answers to this.
Yeah.
Like
First of all,
one of
do
the
you measure your ROI right now on the time you spend? Because if you don't, and then you adapt AI and say, "Oh, we adapted to save money." So how do you know you're saving
Yeah,
money if you don't measure your ROI
yeah.
now before you adapt it?
I
It's,
think
it's hard. It's hard for us to say, "Oh,
yeah,
you will save 10 hours." We don't know.
yeah. Well, I think one of the questions that needs to be asked is, what is the cost? Because there's some unpredictable costs, right?
Yeah.
And as lawyers, we like to know, like we don't want any surprises. Um, this unpredictable, there's got to be a degree of predictability
They
in the
can't.
cost and what
API
it's going to
cost is unpredictable because it depends on
be. Yeah,
usage. And you can have a
yeah,
firm with 50 people and maybe 45 use it just a few times a
yeah,
day, and then you have 5 super users who can spend a few thousand in a week.
yeah.
So you can't predict it. It's impossible.
Yeah, the thing is,
So
like with the cost, like you really got to try and see, and then
Yeah.
when the usage levels, then you're able to understand what next month is
yeah.
going to look like, but not before that.
No.
So with that, would a good way to, I guess, to justify maybe going local is to say, hey, if you go the cloud route, you know, maybe do a, say maybe if you have some data, based on 30 users, this is, and I'm not sure where you can get that data from, but based on 30 users using X amount of tokens, this is the cost, right? And then you can say, hey, um, if you go on-prem, you'll have your own hardware. It might cost you X amount of dollars, but it's a predictable cost. You've already paid for the hardware. The token usage is unlimited in a sense. But then you have to think about, well, what are the other costs? Maybe electricity will go up. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, like
And
if
that's
you're, I think if you're like 5, 10, 15, 20-person law firm, and if you're thinking of using it for some complex workflows, I'm not sure you can really go local because you can't afford it. You can't afford upfront 6-figure payments for your
Yeah.
infrastructure. And then you also
Yeah.
need a different type of talent to build and maintain that infrastructure. That means that you need to have on your payroll also an agency or a software agency that basically can provide also people that can deploy these models, which is a different. It's like going to a doctor for a knee, asking for a brain surgery. That's the difference between building AI applications and deploying AI models on hardware. So those are the things you need to factor in that cost, right? But then I think that's why like these big AI providers that have enterprise licenses, which are still more expensive than like consumer grade, but you are under their DPAs, you are contractually protected. You are basically adhering to every single professional obligation that you as a lawyer have, right? Or an accountant or a banker. So it's hard to compete And also
Yeah.
they are like deploying the most powerful models out there, but then you still in the open source world where
Yeah.
you kind of are. If you go with self-hosted, like that's really hard to compete with, especially for like legal work with so much documents that are so big.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another variable too that's not really talked about, and that's you know, once you use these products, you know, someone's got to pay for it, right? And one of the users, you know, they said, you know, tag users to a specific matter so that the bill could be potentially be attributed to the right source. But what if the client doesn't agree to pay that cost, right? You know, they're like, I got my bill, you've got some kind of tech fee in there, you know. So so there's other, you know,
I
sometimes it's
wouldn't
not
add it as a
straightforward.
tech fee. I would just add it to the billable hours.
Well, I mean, you can add it, but the client might not necessarily pay, right? They might
Well,
not
if you
agree.
add it as a tech fee and it doesn't pay, it's the same, right?
Yeah,
But like
someone's got to
those are
pay
all
the
the
bill.
questions, Stefan, that route back to how did you decide to actually, you know, how did you decide that AI will exist in your law firm? Are you willing to do what it takes to really redesign the operational model? And that also brings with it some structural changes, as Masai mentioned. And that's why the mutual denominator with all of the, and this is like AI native then, right? Like I'm going to redesign my whole operational and delivery model around AI. But then also the pricing is going to look different. The clients are going to be different. And what I'm seeing with these AI native law firms that are like successfully growing, not the ones that are failing, the ones that are successfully growing, they started from zero. So they had nothing to redo. So they were building everything from scratch.
Yeah. And as Justin says, I guess it could be mitigated by agreement, but what if you have clients that, you know, are ongoing clients? Are you going to have to redo their agreements to now approve, you know, the usage of tech or AI? You know, you have to go back and redo your retainers. Like, you know, that might be a little more work as well.
I mean, you do need disclosure clauses anyways if you're using AI as a law, right? So like you're gonna anyways have to touch these documents.
Yeah. We have
we had a couple of other okay, Justin asked also if for our previous thing that we mentioned about token usage and stuff, is there a way to tag usage to a specific matter so that the bill could potentially be attributed to the right source? Technically, yes, if you control the system and you build it yourself. Then you can define what all the documents of the matter and all the tasks related to that matter are, and then you're able to trace them. But not if you just buy something off the shelf if they didn't build that in.
Claude actually has that for their API. You can attach things to a number or a client ID. I don't know if other vendors do it, but they are one of few who actually does it. But yeah, as you say, going offline or running your own is the best way to control.
Oh, we have an interesting one, Frode, on that point. From Faisal, since common users cannot realistically detect whether AI systems are exposing or mishandling PII, which is personally identifiable information, which is interesting because those are not just names and social security numbers. Those are all the sentences that could be used to identify a person.
Identify, yes.
What do you guys suggest? What legal and infrastructural measures should be mandated to ensure companies implement transparent monitoring, independent audits, and enforceable safeguards against PII misuse? Like, you can't do that physically yourself. That's why you have these badges, right? These process guarantees, such as ISO 42001.
I would say HIPAA and GDPR and all these fancy badges should protect you against it, but yeah.
Well, I think on the most basic level. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, you're contractually protected, but you still don't fully know. But contractually protected, I think, is enough. But sorry, go ahead, Stefan.
I said on the most basic level, I guess within your organization, you've got to have some type of policies and procedures with your staff and the users, right? That's like on the most basic level, some type of, you know, internal system or policy on usage. It doesn't have to necessarily be like some type of technical infrastructure safeguard, but there's got to be something in place so that the users know, how to properly use, and they signed off on usage, right? What to do, what not to do. I think
Yeah,
that's
you
the
need
most basic
guidelines.
level.
Yeah, guidelines on basic level, how to use it and how not.
The most basic, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I think
basically,
yeah, I think that ties back into what Stefan was saying before about changing the agreements, because
Yeah.
whether you consciously decide to use AI or not, if you're running a firm with 10, 15, 20 plus 50, like 100 people, I mean, someone's using ChatGPT to draft things or Claude to draft things anyway, so
Yeah.
you're gonna have to change the agreement whether you decide to make the conscious decision to change the whole firm over or not, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be from the ground up. It's
Yeah.
from every user has to agree. Then it's got to go to the clients, have to know. There's got to be some transparency with that and agreement with that. There has to be a complete, I want to say overhaul, but the whole system has to come together from
but Stefan,
user level. Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were pausing. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the whole system as a whole, from the law firm, from the admin level, user level, partner, everyone has to be in sync, right? In an agreement.
But why is this now different? What is different than any other SaaS product that you're using as a lawyer inside a firm to be able to deliver a work product? What is this? What is the fact that I'm using this internal Harvey tool? What is this different now than using a CRM system?
I think the difference is, and I'll just be completely honest with you, is the unknown, the risk. AI it's coming fast. There's a lot of variables, there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of risk, and no one really knows. And to mitigate risk, we've got to figure out the best ways possible that are available. It's changing every second of the day. Like every day there's a new model, there's a new product, so it's hard to track, it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
that's just my perspective.
But I guess that the question is, like, also when you send an email, you don't know what's happening, right? Like, you as a user, you're typing something into your screen and then you're clicking a button and then you go drink coffee or continue your work. But like, what's different with AI, right? Like, also you're doing something, you're clicking a button and then something happens in the back. So what's the actual difference? Like, why is it more risky if you look at a supply chain?
Well,
yeah. Can I chime in?
Chime in.
What I've heard from lawyers are two things that they're afraid of. One is some of them have this idea that it's like a public system, in the sense of because I guess the difference between AI and regular software is this training idea, right? Is that in order for AI to get better, it has to train. And so the fear that lawyers have is, I talk about John Doe's divorce or whatever it is, and then somebody goes to ChatGPT in 3 or 6 months and asks about John Doe, and it gives all the information that I put in. So I think that's the main difference is the training, I think, and that's the main fear that I've heard from lawyers, and that's really, in my opinion, that's the only difference between AI and any other software. But I don't know how accurate or how real of a fear that is, that OpenAI is going to train on like your one conversation you had with a client, and then 7 months later somebody's going to ask about that specific conversation, and that data is going to come out. I don't know if that's a real concern or not.
Yeah, exactly.
I think partly there's another I guess concern, and that's knowledge, right? Lawyers were paid for our information, our knowledge.
Sure.
Internally, we have our own, I'd say proprietary knowledge base, right? We've got our precedents, we've got our strategies, right? That are private to each firm. We don't want to like a lot of us, they don't want to disclose that information to the public, because that's how they, that's their bread and butter. That's how they make a living, right? You know, and I guess there could be a credible fear of you know, having that knowledge base that you spent 50, 100 years building within your firm. Now it's open to everyone. You know,
So I think that
How do you know your SaaS products doesn't do the same? That's the question.
yeah, that's the question. But also there's
they could be selling their data to AI companies. You have
Or
no
it's,
clue.
it's
they're not
even
even know it, right?
you have these companies like Mercor, Scale AI, these companies that they hire lawyers to come in and like to label
Yeah.
stuff, right? So what's
Yeah.
stopping somebody if Mercor gives a lawyer a good offer to come in and say explain the processes of their firm so they can sell training data to OpenAI? I mean, what's stopping an individual lawyer from going and taking that offer and, you know, disclosing the firm's like internal practices?
Nothing.
Yeah,
I think
nothing.
that they're
Really,
like
unless there's a contract. I mean, unless that lawyer could be under a contract to not disclose. I mean, they may have a non-disclosure agreement with that previous firm, but yeah, it's essentially nothing. It's kind of on them.
I think that this the Masai, what you said about training on your data, that being the biggest fear, right? I think
Yeah.
that's actually what I'm also hearing. Like when I keep on asking, like, what's the difference between your data sitting in an email that is also controlled by another company, as opposed to using it for, you know, the chat with an AI that is controlled by the same company. So what's the difference, right? And I get back to this training a model on your data. But I think that this fear is coming partially from out of a misconception. Because to understand this, we need to think first how are AI models being trained.
Yeah.
And what I think still most people understand as training is you talk to a model and the model is getting better at giving you questions because it knows you better. Your ChatGPT knows you better with every conversation. Your Claude as well. Oh, the model is being trained on my data. But that's actually not how it happens, because the model training doesn't happen in real life. It doesn't happen when you have a conversation with the model. That's what I keep on saying. Like, this is that memory layer that lives in ChatGPT. And when you go to another provider, there's another memory layer. But that's on the application level. The model is not aware of this.
Yeah.
The model training is happening in a way that, you know, they put the model offline and then they give it large amounts of data sets, and then the model is trained on that data. And once it's ready, they put it back online. And that process is taking months. And where the real risk is happening is that when they are assembling these data sets for the model to be trained, people are doing this. So this is where you have another element that you don't understand, you don't know about in the supply chain of model training. And there's a human going through your chats and it's putting it into data sets. So this is where your attorney-client privilege is breached. This is where confidentiality fails and all of that stuff. But, and here's a big but, because that only happens in public versions, in free versions. If you have an enterprise deal with OpenAI, if you're using the enterprise license, this is not actually contractually happening. So that risk of your data being trained for being used for model training is not there in that sense.
Well, what if they use like a data flywheel? There is technology called like data flywheel where it takes the data and continually trains the model. You know, what if they do have that layer and you just don't know it?
Yeah, but again, if you opt out of model training, which there's an option, or if you're using an enterprise license, your data is not being trained for model being used for model training. And I think they're like a little bit more transparent with the techniques they're using for training the models.
Okay.
Yeah. But
No.
I think the biggest misconception is people think that what they write when they send it to an LLM, it's text. It's not. It's just numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If I snap your conversation between your computer and the LLM, I will just see numbers. I won't see clean text.
It's also encrypted in many different ways.
Yeah. So it's not clean text you're sending. It's not training on clean text. It's training on numbers.
And if you would, Frode, let's say that I'm a hacker, I am state-backed, so I have a lot of resources to hack. And I now hacked your model, and can I see into its brains all the documents that you uploaded as a lawyer?
No,
Why not?
because it's just numbers. It's zeros and ones. So you won't see anything. You will see zeros and ones, and then you have to make sense of it.
Would that determine? Would that depend on the level of hack? So,
Right?
would that depend on the level of hack? You know,
No, LLMs are trained on zeros and ones. It's math. It's not clean text.
It doesn't think in text. It thinks in numbers.
Tokens.
In tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you send it
So that-
something, it's zeros and ones, and then it predicts, okay, this will be the next one. So it gives you an answer. That's it.
Tokens. Yeah.
But would it depend on the type of hack? I mean, let's say you give it some type of prompt.
No, because
injection
like
where you're
there is no
instructing it to-
layer. There's no layer in AI brains which contains any type of text. That's the thing. It has
Yeah.
so there's like this channel 3 blue 1 brown, which
Yeah.
explains really well,
Yeah.
in a nice way. Like it explains how these models work under the hood, and
Yeah.
you see how many layers of vectorization is there, and that's like conversions, like a conversion into a conversion into a conversion. So like you can't really, and it's all numbers. It already, the moment it hits the system, it's already numbers.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess the argument there, to play devil's advocate, couldn't somebody, like OpenAI has a tokenizer, right? Couldn't somebody just reverse the tokenizer? If I can see your tokens, I should be able to put those tokens into a tokenizer and then recursively get back the text of what those tokens are, depending on the model.
That's a good one, but you would have to be really on a very, very shallow level of the inference layer to actually do that, and then you have cybersecurity measures. And then my question is, okay, that's a real threat, but what is it different with me intercepting your email? Because you have encryption, but I have the decryption key.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, the only difference is training, really. And if you just opt out of training, then you're facing the same risk as if you use any other cloud provider, basically.
Okay, now we have one from Dexter. Hey, Dexter. Dexter is also an AI engineer. Okay, so there's many ways to mitigate data risks, including models disconnected from the public internet, of course. We hinted earlier in the conversation, most important thing is deciding what you want to achieve with AI in the first place. Then you evaluate the solution against the types of questions the system is designed to answer / tasks designed to be completed. If it matches your required level of reliability for defined use case, then I'd say run the experiment. Exactly, and you might figure out when you run this process that Dexter explained, you might figure out that for this type of task, an open source model does well, a 13 billion parameter open source model. So then you can definitely spin up something, rent it and host it there if you want to.
Locally.
Yeah, or buy a DGX Spark or 6 of them, right? And connect them.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for this one, Dexter. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. Okay, this session went pretty well. A lot of, I think those are a lot of, those are the things that I hear people talking, writing, commenting, and asking themselves about. Yeah, it's important to be like, in an ideal world, you would be completely secure. In an ideal world, you would have 100% capability, right? But those two are sometimes at the opposite sides of the same spectrum. So you got to figure out the balance in between.
Yeah.
A deep thought for a Saturday afternoon here in Europe and morning in other time zones.
Yeah.
What does agentic AI actually mean in legal context? Somebody asked me that this week.
Sorry,
what does it mean? What does agentic AI actually mean in legal context?
Nothing. It's just a buzzword.
Yes, brother, thank you. This is one for the intro. Again, super punch.
Yeah. When I hear that, my brain like explodes because like another something else. Like, good Lord.
It's just a combo. Needs to be alive.
Needs to be alive, yeah.
Yeah.
What did the CEO of Microsoft AI say like a month ago? 12 to 18 months and all the knowledge tasks are going to be automated. All of them.
That's bullshit, but that's okay. Anthropic said the same 18 months ago. Nobody will ever need to be coding anymore. We're still coding. So, yeah.
What is happening with the Pentagon? Did it got an epilogue? Pentagon Anthropic.
You know,
I don't know. That's an interesting discussion because Palantir went out and said, well, our entire platform is built on Claude.
It's Claude, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yes.
We'll see. I think it's just right now a lot of noise, and then it will calm down, and Anthropic will be the main model. Otherwise, Palantir need to change their entire platform to OpenAI.
But how hard is it today? Like, how hard is it today? Because 2 years ago, it was not that hard. You would just have a fallback Claude model if you had an OpenAI system or vice versa. But today, you have specific skills and like all these things that work only with one provider. Yeah. So how hard is it to really switch today?
That's really hard because one prompt in OpenAI can give you a different answer in Claude or in DeepSeek or in Kimi or whatever provider you want to use. Or you can go to Microsoft and try it and it will fail. So it's no longer just switching the API key and your system is good to go. There is no way. And you've seen it also. I think it was the CEO of Legora who said they had OpenAI and then they switched to Anthropic, and it took them a few months to be up and running with the conversion. But you can try it yourself. Open a free OpenAI, Claude, and Gemini, and give it the same prompt. You will see we'll get 3 different answers.
Yeah, it's crazy. Can you imagine the U.S. security systems changing from Claude to all to OpenAI? It's just crazy. It's crazy, isn't it, to think about?
The scale of the operation. Yeah.
Scale is tremendous because they also said that all third-party providers cannot use Claude, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Thousands of companies linked to the U.S. government.
But there is a supply chain risk, and is this now the end state of this debate, or is there still a process going on where they're trying to dispute this or whatnot?
Well, Anthropic, I think, sued them, so we'll see what happens. They sued the U.S. government, and they also went out and said the transition would take them over 6 months to do. So I don't think that battle is over yet. We'll see. But calling them a supply risk is just insane because they don't want to use their model for warfare. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
And then they used it anyway in the war, and they hit a school. So
okay, so this is the point where we're ending our Saturday legal AI debate.
Yep, it's a wrap.
We're done. Thank you, guys.
Have a peaceful Saturday, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
See you 2 weeks from now. Bye.
Bye.
Oh man, that is hilarious.
Good session today. A lot of the fears lawyers have around AI data security are real, but some of them are based on how people think these models work, not how they actually work. It's worth understanding the difference before you make a 6-figure infrastructure investment that you don't need. If you like this, consider subscribing. See you in 2 weeks.